And hello. And welcome back.
Nah, ツイポ見た?
And welcome back to Chaos Child. Last time, people died, detectives were detectives, and now we're back at the school, it seems. Let's get to it.
壁砲ボットのネタ画像でしょ。でっかいウーパがドヤ顔して光るように座って渋谷も変わったとか言ってる。
Heck yo. I don't know like 90% of what was just said there. Oopa. Ball shape. Oh, is that the thing from Steins? That might be the thing from Steins Gate. Maybe I was wrong before. Tweet though. Okay. Was that Twitter? That was probably mentioned before, I don't remember.
そうそう、めっちゃ切なそうなの。あれさ、文化祭で使うね。渋谷復興の歴史の展示なんてどうせ誰も見ねえじゃん。
画像だけじゃ弱くない？なんかぬいぐるみとか実際に置かないと。
The Mayo student started to search through Shibuya stores with a smartphone. He must have found something strange because he kept mumbling, "No way." Ito was recording the newspaper club's project for the festival. A bunch of random footage of the preparations in the cafeteria.
そんなもんで盛り上がってる場合かってな。
A body had just been found in Dokenzaka yesterday, and all these students cared about was their stupid Joes. The body was found less than 10 minutes away from the school, but they barely even mentioned it.
ま、確かにまだ大掛かりには報道されてないけどさ。
Oh, that does fit. That reminds me. I've been forgetting to talk about it like 10 times now. So back when I started the game, one or two people were saying like, "Oh, there aren't that many like Let's Plays on this, like sort of weird." And I think I might have an answer as to why, like relative to at least other visual novels. I don't know what it is relative to that. So one thing I've noticed as I've put up episodes is that whoever's the copyright holder for the music in the game, I assume the developer or some parent company or something like that, is very, very aggressive in claiming music from the game. Which means people that want to play these things monetize, which I don't. If you ever see commercials on my stuff, it's because someone claims something in the video, or YouTube's being an asshole. Because YouTube's being an asshole and they changed their policy where they might do that nowadays. I don't monetize anything. I've never monetized anything. But I can imagine people might choose to not do stuff on that basis. Which is actually sort of similar to Muv-Luv. Muv-Luv had something similar, I remember. And it was very specifically music from Extra. Not Unlimited or Alternative, but from the first entry. Oh, god damn it. I'll have to forget about Discord. But very specifically, the entry from the music from Extra tended to flag copyright claims, like the automatic stuff that they do when you upload stuff and it processes the video. So if you're curious as to why some people might not do the games, that might be why. It had been last night. It had made the morning news and the morning papers. But all that had been reported was that a body had been found, and no details were known. And it's rare for a high school kid to check the TV news and papers every day. It's rare for anyone to do that. Especially 2015. There's no word from Miyashiro. Miyashiro. Wait, that's our MC, isn't it? Wait, am I not? Oh, I thought the detective said that he's letting us go. Am I not in this? I'm not with him at the moment? Is this just him? Ito was really worried about what had happened at the Love Hotel, but they had no way of asking about it. Out of context quotes, by the way. He took out his phone, and even though he knew he hadn't got any calls, sure enough, there was no messages. Sure enough, there were no messages. He'd been doing that a lot since, yesterday. He couldn't bring himself to make a call. Okay, yeah, we're definitely not there. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to say to a friend who'd been taken away by the police. laughing students irritated Ito in a way he didn't really understand. He'd been planning on videotaping the entire cafeteria today, but he just gave up and left. He went inside the club room and saw Kurisu was there.
連絡は
Kurisu's expression clouded for a moment as she shook her head.
あれからは何も。
そっか。
Wakui, the club advisor, had told him that Kurisu had taken a change of clothes to Miyashiro to the police station last night. She'd been told that neither Miyashiro nor Onoe were hurt. The police were probably going to let them off with a warning, and they weren't suffering any after effects from the trauma. They'd be let go in the morning. School was over. It was almost evening, and there's no word from either of them. Ito dropped to his chair.
ったく、学校のみんなは平和なもんだよ。昨日のことなんてほとんど誰も話してないんだぞ。
そう。
そりゃあ東京じゃ発表されてるだけでほぼ1週間に2人のペースで誰かが殺されてるんだから、変死体があったってだけじゃ別に真新しくもないけどさ。にしたってな、道玄坂なんてもろ近所じゃん。下手したらそこを通って登校してるやつもいるかもしれないってのに。つうかいるだろ、うちなら。あれかな、あいつがいつも言ってるみたいに社会に関するニュースを載せてるサイトとかにアクセスしないやつばっかりなのかな。
Yes, the quote, real news, end quote. Always a great place to...
わかりやすいね。
Yeah, I feel like that's not something Ito would be so like that about. Kurisu chuckled.
Huh?
心配なんでしょ、二人のこと。
Ito started to speak, but then choked it back.
別に副部長こそ心配なんじゃないの？
Ridiculous, she chuckled.
怒ってる。処置なしだもの。セリカはともかくとしてね。忠告も聞かずに突っ込んで無茶するからこんなことになる。伊藤君にも新聞部の文化祭の映像押し付けることになるし。
いや別にそれは大したことないからいいんだけどさ。
ダメ。与えられた役割はきっちりこなすのが当たり前でしょ。
ここか。クルス、予算の件どうなってる？
The budget? What? Kawahara appeared and he was very out of breath.
予算？
超過した予算をまとめたやつ。経理がまだかって。
Oh, that's a thing. Okay. Kurisu frowned as she realized her mistake.
ごめん。すぐにメールでまとめて送るから。
Couldn't you just called her or texted her even?
なるはやで担当の教師が帰っちゃう前に。
Kawahara ran off before Kurisu had time to answer. Before he was even out of sight, Kurisu had booted up the PC and started to tap at the keys.
何？
いや別に。
Which of us is more obvious? Well, that's what Ito was about to say before he stopped himself. Normally, it was impossible to imagine Kurisu not doing her job. For a while after that, Kurisu focused intently on her work. Ito didn't have much else to do, so he watched her. When he looked carefully, he could see small dark spots under her eyes. She probably hadn't slept. And then Ito realized for the first time. Kurisu probably had come to the club to see if either of them had contacted him. With all the preparations that were going on, there was no other reason for her to even be here.
なんとまあ、あの女帝がね。
Kurisu pressed down hard on one final key as she finished her task. Then suddenly, an unpleasant sound filled the room.
Nah.
No.
わかってる。
They looked over and saw that Kazuki was nibbling on dried squid. Ah. I don't like seafood in the first place. Squid in the first place sounds horrid. Dried squid just feels like the worst of every world. As she played her game, oblivious to everything around her. Ito had seen her come in after Kurisu had started her work. He thought she might say hello, but knowing her, maybe not. He'd also seen her start to play her game. He'd been trying not to bring it up, but that was certainly impossible now. She must have been concentrating pretty hard. Her gaze was constant and steady. He sighed.
こいつはいつでもマイペースだな。他人に興味がないのかね。
そんなわけないでしょ。この子は他の人よりほんの少しだけ自分が強いの。
にしたってよ。
She's not in the same club as them, he started to say, but Kurisu stopped him with a raised hand. She looked down at Kazuki's game screen.
そうでもなかったみたい。
Kurisu chuckled and took off Kazuki's headphones.
カズキ、私はゲームやらないから詳しいことはわからないけど。この家の壁に向かって延々と火の玉出してるのは何か意味があるの？すごい勢いで燃え広がってる。
I mean, maybe sometimes people just want to see the world burn. No, yeah. Kazuki looked back at the screen with a stunned expression on her face. She yanked the headphones out of Kurisu's hand and quickly put them on, and started to pound at the keyboard.
落ち着きなさい。というかその煩わしいスルメ飲み込むか出すかしなさい。行儀悪い。
Kazuki may or may not have heard her because she struggled with her game for a while and then... She froze like a toy whose batteries had run out. The squid she'd been chewing fell out of her mouth and landed on the desk. She stared at it for almost 30 seconds, as if something impossible had happened. Then she silently stood up and staggered over to the shelf where she kept the electric coffee maker. I'm gonna note, this song, this like piano song, is it just me or does it feel overused? Like it's an emotional, sad song? And it was used before too with some of the stuff relating to Kurisu's and MC's backstory, right? I remember it for that. But it sort of feels overkill for the actual tone of the moment, doesn't it? Then she silently stood up and staggered over to where the electric coffee maker was. Her face had turned pale.
Kazuki? 大丈夫か?
Maybe they're just playing it for a joke with the music, I don't know.
コーヒー入れてくれるのか?
Kazuki nodded in answer to Ito's second question, started to make the coffee with shaking hands. She made Kurisu her usual with 2 cubes of sugar, gave Ito a coffee mixed with milk. Then she made a cup for herself, black, but didn't drink a drop. Her forehead slammed into the desk with a thud, and she became so quiet it was impossible to tell if she was breathing. I was just saying that it felt like they were like that music from before the piano music was overkill. Maybe not. This is the direction. It feels like, it makes it feel like they're much sadder than like the scene feels like it's actually playing out as. Like they're worried and stuff like that. Sure, yeah, obviously. They're worried and restless and having trouble sleeping and that sort of stuff. But the music's more like, Oh no, this emotional thing, horrible things have happened, we're all depressed and just something at a level higher than what at least the scene seems to have been, I guess. But then again, forehead slamming into desk with a thud. Maybe I'm underestimating the scene.
ね。
Kiryu looked to Ito for agreement as she cleaned up Kazuki's squid.
いや、そうか？
He took a sip of his coffee, not sure what to think. To him, none of this made any sense. Sort of a sporadic scene, I suppose, between the music and everything else. Kurusu didn't say another word as she drank her own coffee. Ito looked up at the blank ceiling and decided it was as good a time as any to ask. It wasn't that it was wrong, but it still felt kind of awkward.
あのさ、
何？
あいつがこんなに事件に入れ込んでるのって何か理由があんの？
Well, if I was to guess, the main thing we know about him, well, he lives in like that, like almost like mobile trailer by himself, right? And it seemed like he knew Kurusu from when she was younger. So, between that and some of his insecurities and stuff like that, I could, especially considering the potential connections to previous stuff, maybe his parents were killed in the previous set of murders that this is seemingly connected to, maybe? That's my best guess. Kiryu froze. She lowered her gaze, as if searching for answers in her coffee cup.
伊藤くんこそ、ずいぶん事件に対して熱心じゃない？
She seemed to be trying to change the subject.
俺はこういうのが好きな人だから。
こういうの？
Yeah, maybe his parents died and then, because they mentioned that he had like a sisterly-like relationship with her. Maybe he went to, and basically was like half adopted or something like that by her family or something like that. After that happened. Maybe.
猟奇的な事件。でも、昨日みたいに現場に忍び込むっていうのは。
That was going too far, he continued. Kiryu silently took another sip of her coffee. Right, and since she's, like, seeming to, like, try to change the subject, she seemed to be staring at a single point in the distance, lost in thought. It's clear that while she was seeing the things around her, none of them held any meaning to her. Looking at her scared Ito a little bit. Was it really that big a deal?
別に言いたくなければ。
そういうわけじゃない。きっと基本的には伊藤くんと同じ。タクルも好きだもの、こういうの。それに、危なっかしいところに首を突っ込みたがるのも昔からだし。
I see, Ito said.
小学校からだっけ？あいつが副部長と一緒に暮らすようになったの。
Huh.
ええ。正確には被災して少し経ってからだから、中学生に上がるか上がらないかの時だけど。
Kiryu and Maishiro were both what people called Earthquake Orphans. Okay, both of them? Okay, I had been assuming she had to have a stable situation just because presumably someone had to have a stable situation. So, assumptions. They'd both been in 6th grade when they lost their parents to the earthquake. Since they had no relatives to take them in, they'd been sent to the same group home. The localized small-scale children's welfare facilities, Aoba Dormitory. Bit of a mouthful there. Kids like them weren't common in Shibuya these days, but they weren't exactly rare either. Yashiro had been so badly injured during the earthquake that he'd been put into a coma. He was still in that coma when he arrived at the dorms. The head of the dorm was also the head doctor at the Oba clinic downstairs, and so for a while that was where he was kept. Kiryu had taken care of literally all his needs. There were 4 kids at the facility, Kurusu and Miyashiro were the oldest. Since her birthday was earlier than his, she dubbed herself the oldest of the 4 siblings and volunteered to take care of the other 3. Even back then, Miyashiro had a habit of being curious and getting into trouble.
だいたい天の弱だしね。みんなとは違うってよく言ってるでしょ。そんなことはないのに。
He does seem to have a complex about that. She spoke like a parent worried for her child's future. Oh, if I was a parent with a child acting like that. I feel like my first instinct would be to assume they grow out of it. But knowing just how the world tends to work, and seeing a lot of people with insecurities over, let's call it hierarchy in the world, yeah, it's not necessarily something you grow out of. Let's just hope he does. Because if he stays like that the entire game, he's gonna be really fucking annoying.
でも結局あの子は。
お疲れ様。おや、クルス君も来てたのか。
先生、連絡があったんですか？
The club advisor, Wakui, was relaxed as he came into the room. Kurusu quickly stood up and rushed over to him. He nodded in motion for her to calm down.
ついさっきね。
大丈夫そうでしたか？
それはもちろん。ほら、伊藤君、すぐに体育館に行きなさい。
体育館？
軽音部が今からリハーサルをするって。いい文化祭の記録になるんじゃないかな。
Is it just me, or does this guy feel like he might have murderer's eyes? I don't know, something about those eyes feel like they'd shape into, like, something sadistic really easily. I'm just gonna call it now. This guy murders at least one person by the end of the game. Kurusu's expression froze. And suddenly it changed.
涌井先生？連絡ってそれですか？
そうだよ。ってなんだいクルス君、機嫌がいいね。
What?
あら、先生には機嫌がいいように見えますか？
行ってくる。先生も行こう。
ちょっと。
Sensing a gathering storm of violence, Ito pushed Wakui out the door. Kasuki had looked up, but now she slammed her head back on the desk. Well, that feels like an appropriate way to end this sort of interesting scene. Now that she was all alone, Kurusu took out her phone and checked it. There's no message, of course. She sighed and looked at the board. That incident yesterday at the Love Hotel, whether it was murder or suicide, from the way Miyashiro and One had looked when they'd been taken by the police, something had happened. Miyashiro had said it had something to do with the incident 6 years ago. Now that it had happened 3 times, there was no ignoring it. Now it was too dangerous. She couldn't let him get more involved in this. Again, I don't know, maybe now that I've just got it in my mind, but this music's... Now, whenever this music's coming up, it feels like it's... a bit... It feels like, like what I said before, like it leans a bit too heavily into the emotion for the actual scene. Like they need an in-between of other music they have and this in order to properly match the tone that feels like they should be going for. I don't know. Maybe it's just because the game has done such a good job so far at setting the tone in most cases. It's so sort of out of, it almost feels out of character even being this far in for it to feel like it's off in that. She thought back to Ito's question about why Miyashiro was so interested in this case. Kazuki was still lying with her head on the desk. When she turned her head to the side for some reason, she looked like she was enjoying herself. When Kurusu saw that, she suddenly lost her desire to drink the coffee. apologizing in her mind, Kazuki. She decides to pour it out at the water fountain. She headed to the upstairs water fountain, which was usually less crowded. She found herself looking down at the gaps between the tiles as the sound of her footsteps rang in her ears. She could tell that she was walking slower than usual. Essentially, Kurusu was lonely. She remembered what she said to Miyashiro when he woke up at the clinic.
クルスママ、名前で呼んで。家族なのに名字で呼び合うのはおかしいでしょ。
Always the optimistic one, eh? In the end, he...
あの子は特別が気取りたいだけなんだから。
She knew why, she supposed. The event that had caused him to leave the dorm was still bothering him. November 7th, 2009. I wanted water. I could still feel the sensation of the dead woman I'd touched when I'd fallen on my hands and wanted to wash it off. What? I wanted to wash my face too. The wind from the flames had blown something small into my eye, and it itched badly. I was thirsty too. Sarika was on my back, showed no signs of waking up. Oh, okay, so she was from then too. Okay. My legs were at their limit, so I forced my way through the crowd, sat down on a tire that had rolled nearby. It smelled like burning rubber. Sort of weird. She hadn't mentioned anything about, Sarika being at the, foster house. I didn't have the energy to apologize to the people I ran into, and they didn't have the energy left to complain. I slowly brought Sarika to rest on my knees and looked around. I saw an orange light. The light of the fires reflected off many things. It was pretty, I thought, before I realized how inappropriate that was. For some reason, I started to count the bodies on the ground, not knowing if they were alive or dead. But in less than 5 seconds, I got in way over 10 and realized how futile it was, so I stopped. Shibuya Station was utterly destroyed. The 107, only a few minutes away by foot, was ruined as well. 5 whole hours after the earthquake, the chaos had only increased. There were a few people out walking, but I wasn't sure if that was because they'd reached safety, or simply collapsed from exhaustion. I saw someone carrying his own severed arm in a convenience store bag. I saw people ignore a barefoot woman as she cradled a baby whose head was smashed in. Some had outright given up on sanity and were flinging things into the fire. A group of middle-aged salarymen were dragging a young girl into the darkness. A young man went to join them. There was no other way to describe it. This was hell. Sarika moaned a little in my lap. I slapped her cheeks to wake her up. her face distorted in agony. It was okay. She was breathing. She was okay.
これから代々木に向かうから。ほら、あの大きい総合病院。覚えてるだろ。昔冒険しに忍び込んだあそこだよ。
Instead of answering, she just moved her eyebrows a little. I swore and lifted her up on my back again. She didn't seem to be that badly hurt, but this kept happening. I read on Twipo that the general hospitals in front of Yoyogi Station were accepting patients injured in the earthquake. I didn't know if that was true, but I had no choice to go. It had to be better than the hell that was Shibuya.
死ぬなよ。
I yelled, unsure if Serica could even hear me. Started walking. I just need to get to the hospital. The hell was that? I saw pink hair. But did she have long hair in the earlier? The hell was that? Maybe it's her mother or something. Mind you, I'm still sort of perplexed by the whole Kurusu being having this whole almost complex related to Miyashiro here, but feels so indifferent to Serica? That feels weird, doesn't it? I can't be the only one that feels like that's weird. That we'll see if it comes up more, but it's not it's weird. If she was there back then, I would assume maybe she went to a different foster home or something. I quickly glanced to the left and right as I tried to calm my racing heart. I saw that I was in my own bed. It could be something like that. Maybe she had relatives. It could be as simple as that. It just, I don't know. Something just felt weird there. It's it feels like a contradiction. There are definitely ways, I already have, to explain it, but we'll see how it's handled if it's ever brought up. It's just one of those weird things that feels weird until you think about it, and it's yeah, I guess that can make sense. I felt exhausted. I also felt really thirsty. Maybe it was because I had that dream again. Searched around until I found the bottle of water by my bedside. Took a gulp and then grabbed the phone off my bed to check the time.
0時17分。もう日付変わってるのか。
It was around noon when the police had let me go from Shibuya Station with a warning. I'd gone home and gone straight to bed, so I would have been out for more than 12 hours. This was no good. Maybe I'd slept too long, or maybe I hadn't slept enough because my head felt like it was filled with lead.
いや、違うか。
I put my hands up to the thin light that was coming through the window and checked their color. They're the same as always. There's no blood on them. I felt a little like throwing up. Yeah, that's... I hoped another drink of water would help, but it didn't.
くそ。
Thought for a moment and decided to turn on the room lights. I turned on the laptop. I ran a search for urge to vomit, lesson, foods, drink. The internet gave me page after page of results. That feels like that would be a medical condition that could actually cause someone to die. Like, they're just, like, even like a psychological thing that stops them from getting the proper amount of even just, like, liquids. I checked a bunch of pages, just like you're supposed to when you're looking something up.
生姜か。なら源さんからもらった葛根湯があるか。
I looked under the sink until I found the Kakanto power. A Kakonto, and then poured it into a cup and added some hot water from the electric kettle. It had a strange smell, unlike anything I was used to. I took a sip. I could tell that my hands were shaking a little as I held the cup. God damn it all. That wasn't the first time I'd seen a body. Right. I checked the phone again and saw that there were several messages from Serika and Kurusu. I went to answer but stopped. Was she also out? She could have contacted the others. They were probably still up, but I didn't feel like talking to anyone. It felt like the air I'd breathed in at the Love Hotel yesterday was still deep inside me, along with the cheerful melody of the music box and the bread that covered my vision. I felt something strange on my cheek and put a hand up to feel it. It was a bandage. I'd gone to some kind of clinic at the police station where they put it on. They told me I must have hit my face hard on the floor when I passed out. I was unlucky enough to scrape my cheek against a piece of shattered glass. Thankfully, it wasn't a big wound. It barely hurt at all. But it itched like hell. And each time it itched, the shock I felt came rushing back and quickened my pulse. The danger was long gone, but I still couldn't forget the terror. Had I almost been caught up in something horrible? Again? No. I was fine. I was fine, right? I wasn't like everyone else. I wasn't an amateur. I'd gone through that hell I just dreamed about and survived. Maybe having that nightmare again was good for me. I managed to force down the urge to vomit, then clicked away at the computer. Open my computer's TV program, change the channel to a news program, and watch it on my monitor. A few months ago, I bought a USB TV tuner off a homeless guy who had no idea what it was worth. All it cost me was a dinner at a local restaurant. Sort of a scummy thing to do. Just like I thought, there was an article about the events 2 days ago. Well, they said that a man's body was found in a Dokenzaka Love Hotel. They didn't say whether it was suicide, murder, or just an accident. Yeah, this sounds like the only one that hasn't proven to be a very public event. I wonder if that has any meaning to it. There's nothing about the girl who'd been found at the scene. Or about me and Serika. I see.
やっぱりこんなもんなのか。
I never experienced for myself the gap between what happened at a crime scene and what was reported on TV. But it didn't really surprise me. These days, the internet was a lot faster at reporting things than TV. To people who follow the news online, TV wasn't a place to learn new things. It was where you went to see if something you heard about was so important that it was getting TV coverage.
ネットの大衆はどうだ?
I closed the TV program and opened a browser. Return of the New Generation Madness. Nikoniya News had something on it too. Right, there's a bunch of reporters there. Who was the one that actually got into the room? I clicked on the uploaded video.
渋谷でまた事件です。最近の渋谷では今回の件と合わせて3つの物騒な事件が発生しているんですが。
Just like always, is Watabe, the attention-seeking internet reporter. He is famous for charging into crime scenes to get scoops. Lately, he seemed to be getting a little too cocky. He explained what had gone on at the Love Hotel, as the video showed pictures that he had probably taken himself.
いずれにせよ、警察は何か隠していると思います。ただ変死体を発見したとしか発表がなされていませんが、それにしては。
Okay, yeah, and this is why internet news, fast or whatever, tends to be a everything can be a bit clickbaity. And news is very hard. The thing about news is that it's so important too. But we also live in a society where the value of news is determined by interest, basically. And then, like always, he starts to mix his own subjective opinions with the news. Yep. He was right. The police were hiding something, but there's little point in listening to the rest of this. Vague information would just get in the way. I mostly ignored Watabe's voice as I looked at the video on the screen. He must have gotten it by charging into the hotel room. I'm surprised the police didn't take his camera from him. Or just arrest him outright. Thought back to what had happened. A man was strangled to death in his room. There's an unconscious girl and a police officer there as well. The girl was the most obvious suspect. Even if she chose a strange way to do it, she still must have killed him, right? No, she had definitely killed him. Then they would have announced that. She was just arrested, like I was. Over 30 hours had passed. Even if they found out that she was innocent, they should have announced that too. The police believe that the girl with him may know something, and are proceeding with their investigation. Like that. Did the police think that she didn't do it? Then what was she doing in that room? Even if the police had told me during the interrogation that I'd imagined it, I knew what I heard. Someone else had visited that room and knocked on the door. The sound was eerie and always had the same rhythm. I felt a cold chill and idly turned towards the door. It's very hard to imagine him not being in a negative frame of mind at the moment, isn't it? My room was the same as always. There's no sign of anyone approaching it. Like before, I didn't do anything on the basis of him being so focused on what was happening. This, he has nothing to focus on. His imagination can go wild. I listened carefully to see if I could hear anything outside. Nothing. Huh? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The doorknob spun on its own. The door opened. I couldn't believe it. I'd forgotten to lock the door. Someone was here. Who? Was this Erica? Or Gen? Or someone who had something to do with what happened yesterday. It's okay for me to just stand here. Small shadow slipped through the gap in the open door and came inside. Who is this girl? Our eyes met. And then I realized that I should have looked away. Her eyes were blank and out of focus. It's like she was looking at me, but she wasn't. Her skin was so pale, she looked sick. She was mumbling something. She had something behind her back. It was a knife, over 20 centimeters long. That smile. Shit. Shit. She was insane. Then I remembered. I remembered who she was. Oh, you didn't get that part yet? She was the girl at the crime scene. What was she doing here? Right, the witness is like all of the police. She She leapt at me without warning. I felt a terrible pain in my solar plexus. I looked down and saw the knife that was embedded deep within my chest. She giggled as she pulled the knife out. And again, the knife went in. How could somebody die like this? It was insane, I thought. Yeah, that was stupid. For a variety of reasons. That wasn't gonna happen. Yeah, no way, none. I kept telling myself that as I went over and locked the door. Did you actually forget to lock it? Good job! It was just like how, after you saw a horror movie, you ended up afraid to go to the bathroom at night. One theory said that a scary experience like that throws the brain into overdrive and causes it to emit too much dopamine, which triggers strong delusions. Basically, I was overthinking it. Nothing crazy like that was actually going to happen. It was physically impossible. So I was fine, just fine. Well, the concept alone's a bit insane. It would imply that all the police were also her targets. So, you already were interviewed. You should be at least aware, because they would have asked you about the girl. You'd be aware that they knew. I took a deep breath and managed to calm myself down. That's right. Crap. It was a new day. I quickly opened another site. Shibuya News. This was the private news site I trusted the most. It was always updated at midnight every day, and the quality of the news and the reliability of its updates made it far more useful than TV or the mass market sites. Online news was faster than TV, but of course, some sites are better than others. Yeah, it'll always vary. If anything, it'll more vary from subject to subject rather than outlet to outlet. But yeah, there is no end to the number of wrongsiders who would treat the net as a single entity that was the opposite of TV. The TV says one thing, but the internet says something different, they'd say. If you ask me, they were utter morons. These days, even a lot of the larger sites online aim for the same mass market that the TV news did. It was critical that you find out for yourself which sites could be really trusted. Just like the name implied, Shibuya News dealt with the going-ons around Shibuya. It was similar enough to our newspaper that everyone in the club knew about the site and used it regularly. Its owner, Kay, was, how to say this, very skilled at getting and sharing information and seeing its effects. She carefully calculated when to send and when to receive information. A lot of child and grandchild sites use the Shibuya News as their parent site. Most of them were privately run news sites as well. As a result, a huge number of people saw the information that Kay spread. To put it more unkindly, Kay was manipulating them. Yeah, also sounds about right for, an online news source. At any time Kay wrote about a popular shop among high school students in Shibuya, or a free smartphone app, I would hear people at school talking about it within a few days. Take, for example, the Twitter user that most of Hekiho Academy followed, HekihoBot. It described itself as a bot by Hekiho students for Hekiho students. But from the number of times it would show up on Shibuya News, my guess was that it was actually run by Kay. Kay was one of the few people I recognized as a right-sider. When something important was going on in Shibuya, first you checked the TV shows to get the basics, then the mass market sites to see what the net was saying. Then you would go to Shibuya News for the latest information. This was the way the newspaper club, and myself specifically, would always look for information. The quality of the news wasn't the only reason that Shibuya News was popular. One reason was that Kay appeared to be a girl. Appeared? Oh, fantastic. That's a good sign. When someone who's thought to be a girl in real life, they got a lot more hits than someone who's thought to be a guy. And the other reason was...
耳直しにお送りしたのはファンタズムの在家に契約の血をでした。
Phantasm. A band. Got it. How did you... Oh, that's a weird way to call it. I would think of something different when I think of Parent Site, but okay. This radio broadcast. Whenever there was something big she wanted to report on, she would always do an internet radio broadcast. It offered proof that she was a girl, her voice calm and pleasant to the ear. A lot of people just listened to her broadcast. The audio from the leaking noise case that I played for Kurisu had actually been modified by Kei to be easier to understand.
さて、普段かけないファンタズムさんの楽曲をかけたのは理由があります。昨日、ラブホテルで20代の男性が変死していた事件、ご存知ですよね。ニコニアニュースで相変わらず渡部さんがお元気に喋ってくださってますが。
I chuckled a little. His glory hogging was a running joke among Nikonia News viewers.
一つ、彼は気づいていないことがあります。ファンタズムさんが先ほどの楽曲を発表した6年前、渋谷で何が起こったか皆さんご存知ですよね。そう、渋谷地震です。でもその前に世間を賑わせていたのはニュージェネレーションの狂気と呼ばれた連続猟奇事件でした。
I was startled. That's right, crap. I'd forgotten after all that had happened at the Love Hotel. No way.
もうお気づきの方もいらっしゃいますね。9月7日のこっちみんな、9月19日の音漏れタン、そして昨日、正確に言えば一昨日ですが、9月29日の変死事件、6年前の事件と日付が一致しているんです。
In that second, the Twipo stream that was linked to the broadcast lit up. It was overflowing with comments.
次の日付はヴァンパイアと呼ばれた事件が起きた10月10日。愛する渋谷にお住まいの皆さん、くれぐれもお気をつけて。それでは今回はこの辺りでお付き合いいただきありがとうございます。わずかな時間のお相手は私 K さんでした。時刻は間もなく2015年10月1日0時30分。悔いのない一日が始められることを祈っています。
It's a little foreboding. She signed off in her usual way, and the broadcast ended. She got me. That's right. That hypothesis was why I'd forced my way into Love Hotel. And something had happened. Just like I thought. After 3 such incidents, it's only natural to assume there might be a connection. Yeah, but why? Like, a connection, sure. Correlation ain't causation, though. That's the thing, right? The new generation madness. Correlation ain't causation. Oh, those all look fun. Was it going to happen again? I suddenly felt a pain in my cheek. I reached up and saw that blood was coming out of the side of the bandage. The cut must have opened. As I took care of it, the red blood on my fingers stood out. Without warning, I felt a horrible sense of dread, like I was sinking into quicksand. Usually, I love to have a mystery to solve, but now that the case was definitely real, I hesitated. For the rest of that night, I wasn't able to do any more research about the case. Back to scrolling stuff. Thread archived. I mean, oh, it's happening, GIF. Yeah, that sounds about right. So, how many deaths was the original one? I don't remember. 6? Or was it like... Whose eyes are those eyes? That's a weird comment to make. I went to see the ESPR 6 years ago in front of the station. I was in college then. Now I'm unemployed and stay home all day. The fun's about to start again, huh? Oh, this guy sounds like an asshole. The fuck are you so happy? Yeah. It's amazing how horrid people are when you get that, how horrid people can be when they remove their, potential repercussions to them. The same time. Shibuya Police Station.
いい加減答えてくれないかな。名前と住所は？学生さん？それとも働いているのかな？
The thing about speculating with this is that it feels like it's hard to do unless you have a better idea of like the ground mechanics of what's going on. Like it's easier to understand why an apple drops when you let go of it because you understand gravity, right? Or even you have a basic idea of what gravity is.
あの柿田っていう男の人と何回もあのホテル行ってるよね。どういう知り合い？付き合ってたの？もし喋るのが嫌ならうなずくとか手を振るとか何でもいいからさ。ね？どうなの？
One observation. Blonde hair, blue eyes is pretty typical shorthand in, you know, Japanese games for Westerner, yeah? The officer sank back into her chair in resignation. Shinjo could sympathize.
なるほどな。
He'd just come to check in on her a moment ago, but they'd probably been doing this since yesterday. Locked in an interrogation room, cut off from the outside world and questioned by multiple officers, most people would lose their cool. Start to wonder what effects their words were having and focus on every movement of the officer who's taking down notes. It wasn't hot in the room, but they'd sweat. This girl didn't respond at all. Probably wasn't because she was used to it. If she'd ever been interrogated before, the fingerprints they'd taken would have told them who she was.
新庄さん。
ん？
やはり連れて行った方が。
To a mental hospital, you mean? It made sense. The natural assumption was that the shock of the incident had incapacitated her. Shinjo nodded, as if considering it.
捜索願いは？
This is the second day since the incident. If she lived in a normal family environment, someone should have submitted a missing persons report by now.
洗いました。ですが当たりません。
Oh, that seemed like a slight reaction from her. I'm gonna assume not a normal family environment, but a family environment to be disappointed by. Shinjo watched the girl as he listened to her talk. But the girl didn't move a muscle.
家庭のことを言外に含ませても動きなしか。
I suppose maybe I assumed it was a reaction because there was actually like a slight little voice line there. The normal ways weren't going to work then. She'd been sent to the hospital. She'd be sent to the hospital by dawn at this rate.
ご苦労さん。こっちで留置しておくからもういいよ。
The other officer couldn't hide her happiness as she left the room. Okay, well, that probably makes her a good place to end it. So what do we have to work with in terms of trying to work out maybe a basic idea of what the mechanics of how this world works, or the mystery works. There are a lot of details I've probably forgotten by now because it's been very detail dense. We know about the earthquake. We know it probably wasn't an earthquake. We know people seem to be having these almost psychological style abilities, predicting the future, manipulating people. It would be easy to go to the well of just like Esper abilities and stuff like that. Start pulling from tropes from that. Not that I actually have that much experience or knowledge in those to do that, but still, that would probably be the easy route to take here. Start seeing what fits. I do believe some people in the comments said that there are connections in terms of the universes between stuff like Steins Gate and this. Which doesn't help too much because I don't actually remember the mechanics of that all that well. I could just sort of reference that previous theory I had. Maybe I should just use that as a jumping off point. The theory about the idea that these delusion triggers are crossing, like this whole event is like a bunch of crossing set of parallel worlds. The thing is that how they describe the previous event, they have made it sound like what happened was you had these set of murders, which that's what's called the New Generation Madness thing, right? The set of murders previously. And then that, in some capacity, led up to the big earthquake, white beam of light, and stuff like that, yeah? Which I presume basically was the first game, right? It makes it sound like there's a process going on here. Like each of these is building on something. It's making something happen. Maybe if I took the idea of working parallel universes, maybe what is happening is they're trying to... Someone somewhere is trying to line up the right chess pieces to direct a bubble of parallel universes to come out the right one that they want to do. Or something like that? Maybe. Again, I don't really remember the Steins Gate whole, world line stuff in terms of how that worked very well, because it's been years since I've even thought about it, seriously, so... that's sort of the best I've got at the moment. Maybe I'll think of something in between episodes, but I'll see y'all next time. Drive safely, everyone.